Alright, so good evening everyone. First of all, show of hands, who here has had something confiscated from the TSA? Either like a knife or a letter opener, a water bottle, or even like a tube of toothpaste too long? Anyone? Alright, so today we're going to be discussing the Transportation Security Administration, also known as the TSA. First off, the TSA was enacted in response to the September 11 attacks for specifically security and safety of air travel, but includes but not limited to security in airports as well as in the planes themselves. However, I will tell you why TSA is an ineffective agency, as they fail to protect potential threats and dangers. They are ineffective for two very simple reasons. TSA and airports fail to screen physical threats, and air marshals fail to do their duties as enforcement in the sky. First off, TSA fails to screen physical threats. We need to define these threats. They are objects such as weapons, explosives, and other contrabands. In an internal testing in 2015, Homeland Security sent 70 red teams, or officers posing as passengers, to test the credibility of these TSA agents and their security screening process. Homeland Security found that 67 of these 70 red teams were able to smuggle weapons, fake explosives, and other contrabands through many different checkpoints throughout the United States of America. That is an over 95% failure rate in threat detection. And threat detection is the #1 objective of TSA. In one of these instances, the red team set off an alert in their checkpoint. However, even through a pat-down, the TSA agents were unable to detect fake plastic explosives strapped to the agent's back. Not only are the ground crew ineffective, but so are the ones in the air. The Air Marshal program are a group of officers who fly as passengers to enforce individual flights, kind of like a Sky COF, if you will. However, Sonia Hightower, a recently retired Air Marshal, says that the problem stems from management, scheduling Air Marshal flights so physically impossible to carry out without compromising one's health. She's describing what's called sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation is a very serious impairment to motor skills and response to action. In 2012, the Division of Sleep Medicine of Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard Medical School conducted a study on air marshals, and they found out that over 75% of air marshals were sleep deficient. They also found out that half of these air marshals were using drugs such as medication and even alcohol to help them sleep. Because of this, air marshals are at a very disadvantage in responding to a threat, terrorist or domestic. And because of all these medication and alcohol, they're less environmentally aware and overall unable to respond to these threats. Not only are air marshals incapable of stopping threats, they also pose as a potential security risk more so than security enforcement. As of 2010, there are about 4,000 federal air marshals, and since 2001, the start of the program, air marshals have an average of 4.2 arrests per year. This is about a total of 67 arrests to date. Now these may seem like very good numbers, but in a public release of Federal Air Marshal Service Misconduct Database issued by TSA themselves, there have been over 148 arrested air marshals. These numbers span from 2002 to 2012, but even in this short period of time, there are a double amount of arrests of air marshals themselves. In other words, there are more cops in handcuffs than people they are handcuffing. Take Jamie Aldis, for example, who was convicted of domestic battery in Las Vegas, or Cloud Khan, who was guilty of bribery, or even Sean Nguyen, who was sentenced to prison for use of their marshal privileges to smuggle cocaine and drug money. Now these air marshals are the exact same people that fly with us everywhere we go, and that in itself may be just as scary as a terrorist threat. Overall, TSA is ineffective through its land security as well as its air security, and the resources invested into this administration does not yield any result. Thank you.
All right, Alec, I thought that you did a nice job kind of setting up the issue for the audience, although I didn't look over my shoulder to see how many people had things confiscated from TSA. The transition to the proposition needs to be a little bit clearer. I could tell what the argument was going to be because I'd seen the outline and I knew generally where you were headed. I think you could highlight the proposition a little bit more. And the way you phrase it, it's almost got two parts to it. I think ultimately your argument is that they're failing, but it's a little bit awkwardly phrased, so you'd want that to be cleaned up a little bit. You do have a good preview of the secondary points, that's fine. You move to those points pretty quickly, which is okay. I did think that the transition between the first and the second point was a little bit abrupt. I think you rushed into that second point. You probably want an internal summary on the first point. The second point, though, was clearly labeled when you got to it. I thought you had good information, good examples, especially on the second point. That's kind of where you finished off. There's good statistical information from the two studies that you're looking at. I like that. There's a little bit of expert testimony. I think you could probably use a little bit more there, especially when it comes to the question of effectiveness. The fact that there are flaws is one thing. The question of effectiveness might be a slightly different question, and I think you need to have a better answer to that. But I thought that the evidence that you presented was pretty effective. The way you reasoned seemed pretty straightforward. There's a good summary at the end of the speech, and I think everybody understood the point that you were making there. All right, thank you.